Delighted now to be joined by Brian Hanley, Galway Under-20 manager, and hopefully we'll have Galway senior hurling selector Kevin Lally with us in the next few minutes. Brian, before we do jump into the club hurling action in round two of the championship across senior and intermediate last weekend, news emerging that Micheal Donoghue has been announced as the new Dublin senior hurling manager. What's your reaction to that?
I think it's a great appointment for all, isn't it? Like, because Micheal has a wealth of experience. He's a top-class manager. He's got his backroom team in situ for a few years. They know each other. They trust each other. They know how to work with each other. And I think it's a good appointment from him if he's anxious to get back into inter-county management again. I think it's good for both parties. Dublin are getting a top-class manager with a proven record and All-Ireland success, which Galway haven't had. And he'll get all the infrastructure right in Dublin. The talent at his disposal and maybe natural talent compared to what he would have in Galway may be different, slightly different. But I suppose Matty Kenny and his backroom team would have done great work the last number of years. So I think for me, there's a win-win because where Dublin are at the minute, there's really an improvement is easier to make than go back to any further. And I think they won't go back any further. So I wish him and Franny and Noel all the best. And I think it's a great appointment for all.
Do you think he can bring them to the next level?
Oh, I would. I think it's not just him. It's the package he brings with him. I would. Yeah, Dublin hurling. Like, it's only 2 years ago they won the Leinster under-20, or well, maybe whatever it was 3 years ago or two last year as it was with COVID. So they have players coming through, and it depends on the breakdown of the dual player what happens. And there is, like, they have the infrastructure and they have the money behind them, which is a great start. And as I said, natural talent. Like Coola were dominant in club hurling for a few years. They have some very, very good hurlers, and on their day, Dublin can beat anyone. And they have been a pain in the backside for Galway hurling for the last number of years when we played them, particularly in Parnell Park. So I think it's a great move for all, and I think he will take them. He will be a force of them. I do, yeah.
The other man as well from Galway being linked to an inter-county vacancy, Johnny Kelly to Offaly. I suppose there was indications a few weeks ago of Liam Sheedy and Eamon O'Shea, but it looks like Johnny Kelly could be in pole position to get that job now.
Yeah, well, he's worked with was a Cool Derry, or I can't think which of the club teams he worked with in Offaly, and he's been part of the senior setup. And I think it's just keeping the status quo, moving it on. So again, for Johnny's been around the block a long time. He's managed a lot of teams and a lot of clubs and been involved with county structures and in different shapes and forms. So I think Offaly are getting a top class manager. He's won with Portumna. I think it's a great move for him and for Offaly, and I don't think they'll go wrong there.
So far, I suppose, with the championship in senior and intermediate, particularly at senior, what have you made of it so far? I suppose it is like it's a long way away, I suppose, now until we get to the knockout stages, and I suppose with the 24 teams and everything. But the championship so far overall, what have you made of it?
Well, I was away for the first weekend. I was on holidays, but I saw a few games last weekend, and it's very, very competitive. Like, you would still say, judging by results, even though I haven't seen St. Thomas play, and by all accounts, the first week their game against Clonmerdaley was an outstanding game. That they are that step above and that step ahead of everybody else, from what you can see. But there is a chase and pack. I was at Clarenbridge the last day in Turlockmore. There's Loughrea have won their 2 games, but I think clubs are only jockeying for position at the moment to make sure they qualify, and I think come August, I think that's when the real championship will kick off.
And for you, what puts Thomas's, I suppose, ahead of the rest?
Well, I think the consistency, like their level of performance. Like when we were going well in the club in Athenry for a number of years, the one thing we always had was a consistent performance. But Thomas's they know how to win, and they're doing it in their own style. And since they won last year, they won very, very well last year. They look refreshed, they look rejuvenated. Kenneth's doing a great job with them since Kevin moved on, and then they've a close knit bunch, and they know how to win. And that counts for a lot. Like, they just seem to be able to get over the line in games, and they know how to ground out the result, and they trust each other, they trust their process, and winning becomes a habit, and they have that habit at the minute. Like,
everyone with that team will talk about a rich family position with obviously the Burkes and the Cooneys and all these coming through at once. But is it their ability as well for one or two kind of young hurlers coming through in the last few years.
Yeah, well, you see, we had two players. That we had one player under 16 a good few years ago, John Head. He came on 2 years ago when his first county middle won again last year. Connor Head was part of our squad last year. Come on, play Connor back in the minor team that got beaten. They've been able to add in a few every year, but they aren't over reliant on just the Coonies and the Burks. They need their 17 or 18, and they always seem to be able to get a player that can do a job for them within the system and understand their culture and values that they bring to the table, and you know just keep the wheel moving the way they want to keep it moving. And fair credit to them, like, for such a small club and small parish, that they're actually getting maximum out of themselves, which is great for them. Like,
We're joined now as well by Kevin Lally on the line. Kevin, just talking about your, I suppose, former club you were over, St. Thomas's. For you, what makes them such a special bunch to work with?
Hi lads. Yeah, sure. Look, they're a phenomenal outfit, and what makes them so good, I suppose, is probably their culture, and I suppose the way their desire, the way they train, the way they apply themselves, I suppose, on the field and off the field. Phenomenal group, I suppose, phenomenal club, and I suppose that helps as well when you've top administrators in the club, and I suppose that seeps down through it. But yeah, brilliantly ran club, great super players up there, and just doing an awful lot of the right things, and I suppose doing that consistently. Like, and I suppose you look at them this year, like these guys have lost what now? They've lost one game in over 4 years, like, which is phenomenal going, like, you know. And they don't look like they're going to stop anytime soon either. Like, anything I've seen of them so far, they look like there's no doubt about it. They're the team to beat. But yeah, really strong side, really strong club, and a really well ran club as well, I'll have to say. Yeah.
Do you still see them as number one this year, Kevin?
Sure, you'd have to, Paul. Yeah. Like, again, they're going about their business nice and quietly. 2 from 2 again, putting up big scores. A lot of the big players again playing well. You see Conor Cooney notching 111 the weekend. And again, I suppose something like what we've done over the years as well. They've added another couple of players in again this year. Conor Head has drifted in cornerback. Victor Manzo's come in around the middle of the field. 2 great additions again, because obviously they picked up a couple of injuries with David Sherry and with obviously Shane Cooney as well, obviously. So to fit 2 guys in again seamlessly is credit to Kenneth Burke and his management team again. Yeah.
Just there, we were talking about before you came on here, Kevin, like, with Thomas's, there's been 1 or 2 players coming through every year. If you go back to, I suppose, your last year, like Oisin Flannery and Evan Duggan coming through, but like, how important is that in a club, even if you're just getting 1 or 2 every year?
Sure, it's the key. Yeah, I suppose during my term up there, like, that's what something we did every year. We dipped in Evan Duggan, Oisin Flannery, Keane Manny, all these guys, and I suppose that's probably testament to the work that the guys are doing at underage level. They might not be winning A titles up along, be it from 14, 16s and minors, but they're consistently, working hard, and there's a lot of good people up there doing good work. So I suppose when you get them up to adult level, it's very easy to dip them in, because there's probably so much work being done with them up along, and I suppose then you can dip them into a team that's going well. Of course, it's making it easier, but it's probably testament to the guys up there doing so much good work at underage level that they're ready, and that they're ready to jump into obviously a top senior side.
One of the other games in that group, Brian, Clarenbridge and Turlockmore as well over the weekend. People will obviously say Clarenbridge are the next team up to Thomas's. The result, I suppose, and the manner they defeated Turlockmore in has definitely caught a few eyebrows over the weekend. Yeah,
I was at that game. Yeah, it was like, there wasn't much in it in the first half. They were evenly matched enough. I suppose Clarenbridge got a run on them in the second half, but both, I think it's fair to say, both sides were missing a few. As I said to you earlier on, you can just see clubs are jockeying for position. They are jockeying to get through and get to the next stage and move on. I suppose, Turlock will have aspirations of being there at the business end of it. Last year, especially after last year, what happened will have to hurt them a good bit, you'd imagine. And, you'd have to expect Turlock with the quality player that they have. And I think it's the panel now, like, it's for them. They have a strong 20 odd players. You see their intermediate team are pushing as well. I think they had 2 wins as well. So, both them sides will want to be there at the business end. But Clarenbridge looked impressive. Now, I think Clarenbridge, what stands out for me is their backs. No matter who they've in, they have a solid structure. They're very, very secure. They don't give away goals easily. And I think that stands them in good stead. They're well drilled, and you know, you'd have to, while the game may not have been the classic I thought it would have been and the other evening, but I think they both have good potential going forward, and particularly Clarenbridge.
Something different though that they've done this year, Brian, just go for the reports over the weekend. TJ Brennan was up in the forwards around 11 over the weekend. That's a different dimension that added to their attack. Yeah,
it's a dimension they'll probably look at again, I'd say, if I'm being honest. You know, TJ won a lot of ball. He got, I think maybe 1 point he got. You know, he was very, very different. I don't know if that's going to be their plan going forward, but for the last day, it certainly caused raised eyebrows. I didn't expect that. I would have always seen TJ as being your wing back, cornerback, fullback. I didn't, you know, maybe as far as midfield, we had him in the colleges and that. We've seen him playing for UL and that, with the freshers and that. But yeah, it was a different dimension. He's a good ball winner for them. He can set up a lot. But they have Evan, Gavin, and Mark Kindy, like, who can score, you know, from anywhere. Like, and maybe that's what they're trying to do: get a quarterback sort of role for him to set them up and you know and make it easier for them. And that may be the way they're looking at it.
Kevin, you're obviously with the Galway seniors this year. Like, is there anyone so far during the championship that caught your eye? I'm sure you're keeping an eye on our management team with performances.
Actually, there's probably loads of guys, Paul. Yeah, I suppose we're only in game 2 of game 8, I suppose. So I suppose you're probably not going to judge any guy on the first day or the second day. But I suppose that's the way we'll all be judging on them. But yeah, there's loads of guys that are putting their hand up so far, and a lot of good underage players as well. A lot of younger guys are really putting their hands up. But yeah, no, it's probably a bit early to be judging guys and saying such a guy is going to come in or such a guy is going to come out and that kind of stuff. But there's been loads of guys putting their hand up, but I suppose they're going to be judged over the course of the season, or in a lot of cases an 8-game season.
How did you find your first year with the Galway seniors this year?
Good, Paul. Yeah, sure. I suppose it's been busy when at that level. It's crazy busy, but no, fierce, enjoyable. Loved working with the management. Loved working with the players. Very driven group of players, and yeah, fierce, enjoyable. Look, would we have loved to have gone a step or two further? We would have, but I suppose we're like every other county now. We're down at the bottom of the mountain again, and we'll be starting again in November, December time. Yeah.
And just on that Clarenbridge Turlock game as well, Kevin, I suppose the reaction people would wanted to see from Clarenbridge this year, beating finalists, how would they react? But like, so far they've been really good.
No doubt, yeah. Like, I'm sure they were hurting from the losing the county final last year, but they've obviously backed that up, and they're 2 from 2. And I suppose people have to realise as well, they're down a couple of players. Obviously, Ian O'Brien's out injured, Mikey Daly's out injured. They're key players to them. Like, and I suppose that's probably the Mikey Daly one was probably the one that they probably freed TJ Brennan up to go up centre forward, to give them a different perspective up top. But I think they've been really impressive so far. As I said, 2 from 2. Doesn't seem to be any hangover from losing a county final. So they're sitting nice, and they're sitting nicely there. Yeah, 2 from 2.
Just the third game in that group as well over the weekend, Brian. It was a bit of a thriller, you could say, between Sarsfields and Castlegar.
Yeah, I didn't see that game. I know that Castlegar were ahead or were behind for most of that game. I know Greg got a goal in the beginning, but Castlegar, they just struggled to catch up with Sarsfields all through. I know Sarsfields got a goal at the end, but the worrying thing about that was that John Cooney actually played that whole game with a concussion injury. You know, he didn't remember any of the game afterwards. You know, he was in hospital on Sunday night. I think they did well to dig out a result there, considering. But I think Sarsfields are a team for me that'll be the dark horse in the championship this year. You know, they just have, you know, going back to what I said about Thomas and their culture and value system that they have, they seem to have it the same way. They bring on and develop Sarsfields players in a Sarsfields way. And, you know, I would have expected Sarsfields to beat Castlegar. I'd expect Sarsfields to be very, very much at the business end of it when it comes to it. And when they have a lot of young talent that we've worked with, you know, Alex and John being 2, you know, John Cosgrove played, you know, they've more coming in. You know, Shane Hines, the fullback, or Kevin Hines, the fullback, was very, very good. You know, they're bringing in a few, and they'll be thereabouts, and they'll be very positive where they are at the moment.
Kevin Cooney was a player who looked really sharp over the weekend.
Yeah, he's a guy that's in a really good vein of form. He finished the year, you know, he finished the year really, really good. and he's taken that form on in the first couple of games. He's been really good. He's probably been the standout forward, if I'm honest, in the club championship over the first 2 rounds. Himself and Darren Murphy in the corner. So yeah, Kevin's been really good. Blistering pace, got such a good eye for a goal, and I think by playing young Darren Murphy inside with him, I think that's given them a real go-to inside. There's obviously great pace, great directness about the two of them, but both of them I think have been really impressive.
Do you see Castlegar and Clonmerdady maybe as the two teams who could struggle in this? It just seems with them 4 teams, they might be a bit ahead of them, Kevin.
Look, it's hard to know, Paul. Like, again, it's probably early to be judging, because like you're going to be judging, I suppose probably the way clubs are looking at this is rounds 3 and 4 are going to be moving week in the club, or moving games within the club. So for now, it's just a little bit of jockeying for position. I know even in some clubs there's still some guys in the States and that kind of stuff. So you're going to see probably different teams going in the next couple of rounds as well. But I think it'd be a bit early to be saying, such a team is going to struggle. I don't think you can really make judgment of that. Probably looking at that round 4 and round 5, because remember, with 4 teams coming out of the group, probably a couple of wins, 3 points, potentially 4 points will definitely get you through. So there's still plenty of points on offer. So I don't think you'd be writing anybody's obituary just yet now.
Do you still think Castlegar and Clonmerdady could have a say here, Brian?
I'd expect so. I expect Clonmerdady would. Like, they were very, very unlucky against St. Thomas in the first game. It was that arrogance Clarebridge in the first game. It was only the last few minutes that caught them up. And Castlegar, I was with Crowell last year. We played them. We beat them a point, and we were lucky to beat them. But you'd have to expect so. And I agree with Kevin. As I said in the very beginning of this, it's only jockeying for position in the first 2 rounds. I know that there are lads coming back into the fold from injuries and from away. So I think 3 and 4, I think the last 2 weekends, 2 wins potentially will get you through. And I think that's what a lot of clubs will be focusing on as well, pending where they are now,
Dangerous in the Senior A Group 2 over the weekend. I suppose the one eye-catching thing there has to be the score Captagal racked up over the weekend, Kevin. Beaten Kilkenarren 426 to 121, but like to put up 426 is really the most impressive aspect of that.
There's no doubt, yeah. I think that the leading scorers in the championship as well, Captagal, and again, I suppose a player, myself and Brian know well, Liam Collins is at to the 4 as well. I think he got 12 points the weekend, like, and he's a guy that's going really well. Niall Collins the same. Jam Mannion looks to have his injuries behind him. So James Egan up top, Damien Joyce came on the weekend. So they have a nice mix of forwards, and they're going to be a threat. There's no doubt about it. They're definitely a top 4, top 5 side, Captagal, and but that their offensive play, and I even see Declan Cronin playing wing back. He got 1-2, I think. So they seem to have threats all over the field. And Evan is back in good form. Yeah, offensively they look really good. They've, as I said, they've a great selection of players, and I suppose led probably at the minute by the 2 Collins and Niall and Liam. They've been excellent. Yeah.
The character of that club is just remarkable, Kevin, isn't it? Really, when you consider the amount of semi-finals they have fallen short at.
Yeah, it is, and like no better guys to keep coming back. Like they've got a couple of sucker punches in a couple of semi-finals. We bet them in one there, I think by a point or whatever, back a couple of years back with Thomas's, and still keep coming. And I suppose it's probably testament to their underage as well. I think they're in the under 20. Brian will probably correct me in this, in the under 20 A1 final, I think, coming up. So it just shows the work that's been done there at underage level up along, and it's great. And a bit like Thomas's, they're dipping younger players in every year as well, which is great. And I suppose they're lucky then that they've a couple of the boys won't like me saying this now, the older players, the Damien Joyces, the James Scahill, all these guys to be still there, and where they can dip in a couple of the players in as well. But doing great work at club close to my own down home, and doing great work, and they're going to be thereabouts as well. They're going to have a big say in the championship, as you said, offensively really strong, and they're the leading scorers in the championship after 2 rounds.
Do you think they'll be thereabouts again, Brian?
Yeah, I was at the game Kilkenarren played. Now Kilkenarren were missing a lot. I suppose I know, apart from my own club at the night, Kilkenarren would be the next club that I'd be most affiliated with, and they were missing a lot. But the scary fact about that was the stat that came to me during the game was in the last 15 minutes, Kilkenarren won that 15 minutes 9 points to 7, and Captagal had taken off an awful lot of their go-to men. Like Liam Collins was just absolutely outstanding, and as for last night, the performance he gave in the under 21 A1 or whatever it was against Loughrea. He was just unmarkable and unplayable. And like when you have a marquee forward like that who can take the amount of abuse he can take and still produce what he does. And like Kevin and I were at the pin of our collar a year ago to win a game, and when that ball went to Liam, 10 times out of 10, anyone would have caught it and taken on the goalie and got the free. He just automatically flicked to the back of the net, and that's a guy that's thinking a level ahead of the normal or the above average player, like particularly in the forwards. But I think Capitagal, they seem to have got their mojo back this year. They, of course, they're going to want to come back. The hurt of losing semi-finals, you can use that, and the only positive way is to come back and put it right, like, and I think they will. But bear in mind, on the Kilkenarn side of it last day, they were missing an awful lot of their players, and they're down a lot, so they're going to struggle this year. They know that themselves, and I think they'll be in a rebuild for next year.
Brian, as well, your own side, Crofwell, you worked with last year. That game against Loughrea, just the start was the killer for them. They went down 1-10 to a point, and they did crawl it back and nearly had Loughrea back, but just left themselves with too much work to do.
Yeah, they did ultimately. I only saw the second half of that, and they were very competitive. They missed a few frees. Things went wrong. Things went not so right for them as well. But yeah, they'll still take a lot of heart from that, because Loughrea again would who Crofwell were missing. They were missing, Mark Horan was captain last year, missing one or two. They were Niall Healy's an awful last of them. You can say what you like. He's probably been the most consistent forward in Galway club hurling for the last number of years. Like, he's very, very consistent. He's been carrying Crowell through thick and thin a lot of the time. And they just fell short. Whether Loughrea took the foot off the gas, and that remains to be seen, and time will tell that. But yeah, they'll still qualify. You'd imagine they'll still, now I know they have 2 or 3 big games coming up, but you'd expect them to do so and push on like they were last year. We got the semi-final, and they didn't do themselves justice against Clare Bridge, and I think they will push on.
14 points as well, Kevin, for Thomas Monaghan is another performance. Definitely caught the eye over the weekend.
Yeah, and he won't mind me saying this. He probably left a few behind him as well. Like, he left a few frees behind him, missed a penalty. Yeah, brilliant performance by him again. But I suppose we'll probably just need a couple more forwards just to step up as well and take the pressure off Tom a little bit. Jamie Ryan was good, Dean Cannon was good, but there's probably just a few more of them there really need to step up. They're in an okay position. They're 2 points from 4. They'll be happy enough. They've Capitagal coming down the track, I think, for next for them. So they'll still be happy enough, and they'll still be quite confident getting out of the group. Yeah.
Loughrea, Kevin, 4 points from 2 games. Probably might be disappointed in the end with how they let, I suppose, Crofwell back into that game. But a player that has played underage hurling at minors in 2011's Martin McManus was, I suppose, he was probably someone who caught the eye, I'd say, for your own management team over the weekend.
Yeah, he's been really good. He's been really impressive. Very direct runner, very strong individual. Obviously, I think the system that they're playing inside suits him with the 2 inside, and he plays a very deep inside. So he says he's very close to the inline, and I think that's helping him. Yeah, they play to a very particular style, and I think the way they're playing at the minute really suits the likes of him and maybe Jamie Ryan and these guys as well. But you're right about Martin McManus. He's been very impressive, very direct, very powerful runner. He's been excellent so far for Loughrea.
And just the other game in that group over the weekend, Tommy Larkins took on Gort. Tommy Larkins winning out 123 to Gort 121 points. 2 points in the end, Brian. Victory for Tommy Larkins, and it's a win. It's a win they didn't need in that group.
Yeah, but Tommy Larkins have been consistently, playing well the last number of years. The results, they've put themselves in position. I think it was 2 years ago they were knocked out in scoring difference. They're going the right way about it. And like Tommy's Gort, Crowell, they're going to be, one of them will probably end up not getting through. Like, and they've got a fair battle ahead of them. But I think Tommy's will win more. I think they'll be okay. I think Gort have a few coming back from America. I know there's a lot of lads injured in that, and it's tough. Senior A hurling is tough. Like, you get, morale is a big thing. You lose 1 or 2, and you get a bit of unlucky, and you're down to 3, and then you're fighting in the last 2 rounds. So, but I think Tommy's will get through eventually. So
Just on that, with the senior A and senior B system, just coming to you first, Kevin, about it. Like, do you think it is the right system? Because you're looking here and like there's going to be some teams who miss out, I suppose, on the knockout stages in senior A, and then you're having senior B teams who will advance.
Yeah, sure. I suppose it's the old chestnut, isn't it? Yeah, I suppose we were talking about this a while, but I suppose there's change coming on this. I know next year is going to be a 16 team senior championship, so I suppose that change is coming. I think this is the last year of this format, so I suppose this is the end of the road for this format. But I like this format, I have to say, being involved in it. I think it's nice, and I suppose particularly if you're senior A, but it does give you a little bit of leeway. Yes, of course, you get your prize if you're in 1 and 2, you get straight to a quarter final, but sometimes, if you picked up an injury too and you get a loss, you can still pick your way through it. You're in third place or fourth place, you get into a preliminary quarter final. And sometimes that can be the way to go, because I suppose during my time, sometimes when we're in a quarter final, we're sometimes waiting 3 weeks. So it was hard. You could get picked off in a quarter final. So I suppose there's pros and cons in it. Then obviously, if you're in the bottom 2 positions in the group, you're probably there for a reason, because you're going to have 5 games to play, and you really should be picking up points if you have any I suppose, ambition to kick on in the championship.
How did you find the system, Brian, being involved in it?
I suppose it's changed a lot from our playing days, where you had 4 in a group and you had to win nearly all your games straight off, or you wouldn't get out. And then when you're managing, like last year, you had a comfort zone that that you knew you'd probably get through. And I didn't like the last round. I think the last round of games, there'll be the competitors can be taken away from them because results are known and pending, and where you are, and it mainly boils down, like last year with Castlegar, it came to scoring difference, whether Crowell topped the group or didn't, and whether Turlockmore could have beaten the Haskell by 13 or 14 points. That took away from the competitive edge of knockout hurling. For me, championship is knockout. And I like the system of where you have 3 or 4 games, albeit you're not promoting hurling then if you have lads out in the middle of summer or whatever. But it is giving everyone an opportunity to get through, and it gives you an opportunity not to take, you can miss the first few rounds and then get through. But I'd rather knock out hurling, as in you get your 2 or 3 games and you have to get the business into them and get results from the off. I think that makes it more competitive. But I do agree with Kevin. It was, and it is, a danger getting into a quarter final. As in our time, would you be in a semi-final, you could have a 6-week wait because you have preliminaries or quarters, and you get in and they have games ahead of you. That is an advantage coming in if you've avoided injuries. So I don't think you'll ever keep anybody happy, but I really like the knockout the way that was in the 3 or 4 group games.
Then just moving on to the senior B in Group 1, 2 teams with 100% record there so far. A team you would have expected, I suppose, to have 100% record for an opening 2 games, or more married, but maybe a surprise package, you could say, just up from intermediate, along with them who have 100% record, Kevin, in my column.
Yeah, good side. I actually saw them the first night they played at Athenry the first night, and I thought they were very good actually the first night there. Obviously, they look like they're building a new team again. I suppose a player, Micheal and Brian, I know Jeremy Davern was very good that night now, and Ian and Davern, the 2 of them were really good. Ian and Noon was very good for them again, I believe the weekend. But yeah, they're going to be very happy where they are. Obviously, John Hardy's out there doing good work. Yeah, 2 from 2, they'll be fierce happy. Mark Lydon back playing well, back at centre back, looks like he's injury free. As I said, Ian and Noon was really good. A couple of the younger lads were really good. Yeah, so they're going to be chuffed where they are, 2 from 2, and delighted. And I suppose they're obviously caught up a little bit with the football as well. So to get 2 wins, from your first 2, they'll be thrilled with that.
Just with more as well, Kevin, like, I suppose the thing there is Gareth McInerney hasn't been with them, like, so to get 2 wins without him as well.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, they seem to be in a good place. 2 from 2. Obviously, Garrow just still nursing the knee injury, so to get 2 wins without him is great going. But look at, I suppose, Ormore, they're probably saying to themselves, we're probably a senior A club. They're a senior A club there for the last couple of years. They'll be itching to bounce straight back up, and they look like they're going about it the right way, don't they? They're putting up good scores, good spread of scores as well. They've started to go a few younger players again back into the team. Yeah, so they're in a lovely position.
Brian, your own club Athenry would have came as a shock to lose that game to Mike Cullen, but the killing a team in Leitrim game in Athenry, it was really one of the games of the weekend.
Yeah, I suppose it was a disaster from an Athenry point of view, losing to Micheal the first day, although Micheal deserved to win it. Like my cousin is playing with Micheal, and I knew the work they'd done after they lost to Kilkenny last year in intermediate. I think John Hardy, in all fairness, and the rest of them up to the good bit, they haven't got the interconnection with the football as much as they had as dual players. They have that link is they haven't as many caught up or playing it in. It was really the only one. They Athenry had to turn it around, and they played very, very well, as good as I've seen Athenry playing in a number of years. They were very, very good. They got some absolute great scores the first half, but Leitrim Killadima had about 7 wides in the first 10 minutes, and Athenry got ahead. They got a good goal from Carl Kane. They were moving on. Ronan Hardiman was very, very good. They looked very solid. And in the second half, we got well ahead again with 6 minutes to go, 10 or 11 points up, and lo and behold, time up, we're hanging on by our shirt tails again. And this has happened last year 2 or 3 times to us. Tina Aberdeenary caught us last year, where we threw away big leads, and that'll be worry. But I think to get over what happened the first day and to get a result, they've got a big games coming up now. They have Behan, they have Oranmore, they've got Tina, they have big games. But I think Athenry will get great confidence from that. They have been, these young lads in particular, have been living in the shadow of a team that went ahead of them, and we found it very hard as a club to shake off that. But I think last Sunday was the first time I saw a real good confident performance in what they did, and all credit to Kieran and the management there. I think they'll progress well this year.
Carl Kane's 2-3 as well from play was the most impressive performance over the weekend.
Yeah, Carl was away for a few years, and he was caught up in different things, and life, college, different things gets on them. But they were good, but Leitrim still have a role to play in. Like it's unfortunate Adam Nolan's gone for the year, possibly gone for 9 or 10 months, pending his scan back in the shoulder after the game. He was up in Santry today, so he's going to be out for a good while. He'll be lost them, but both sides have a lot of good players, and they'll want to push on. But from an Athenry perspective, I think it's the first time in a long time, they just feel confident that these lads are going to progress and move on. But I just wish Adam well, and we'll be in touch with him shortly.
Then in Senior B, Group 2, Kevin, safe to say Port Tumler are building really well so far in this championship.
Yeah, again, and you're right what you're saying there. I suppose they are building a new team, yeah, but I suppose they're lucky to have obviously Joe and Andy Smith, and these guys are still around live and still in goals. But yeah, they're dotting in a couple of guys. That Declan McLaughlin and these guys have been really good, and they're putting up good scores as well. And Jack Henning is back in good form. He's injury free. He's playing really good stuff. So they'll be really happy as well, because obviously they're 2 from 2 as well, and they're in a really good position to put themselves in a contention for a preliminary quarter final.
Jack Henning at wing back as well, Kevin.
Yeah, he's played a good bit there last year, and I suppose he's continued on there again this year. I suppose he's such a big, strong, powerful fella. I think he's concentrating on the hurling now. I don't think he's playing much rugby, but he's a great athlete and stuff, and he's playing great stuff.
Are they the favourites, Brian, to top that group?
It's hard to know, because it's just in the first 2 rounds. You just don't know what way teams are set up or who's coming back into it, but they're in a very, very strong position. You know what I mean? Like Declan McLaughlin was very, very consistent last year for them. He brought on to the under-20s. He was very, very good for us in all our games. I know we'd only one competitor, but we'd 12 or 13 challenges, and every day he was consistently scoring. See, they're going the right way. They've added in a few other younger lads that we had in development squads and academy squads, and they're coming good. And I know from talking to Damien Coleman about them that they're in a good spot. They were very, very unlucky last year. They should have beaten Bart in that game above in Loughrea. So you'd expect that they would, yeah.
And on your own club, Kevin, Porrick Pierce's Bella Haskell in that local derby, really seeing, I suppose the fruition a couple of years ago from that youth coming through, the likes of Jack Barrett, Dean Riley, Oisin Flannery, having blueprints now all over that team.
Yeah, that's just it now. These guys, I suppose, have been crying out for a few years for the couple of the guys there, the Oisin Flannerys, the Dean Rileys, as you said, to really push on. And I think that's the way it's panned out now. Oisin Flannery's not centre back for them. He's playing well. He's probably moved from forward back to defence, and that's worked well. But the standout probably was Dean Riley. He got 7 points from play. It was a great return. He's in really good form, and it was a big plus when you get a corner forward scoring 7 points from play. Flannery was really good as well, as he always is for Pearsons, because he's just a phenomenally consistent, good player for Pearsons over the years. Really good, got his 8 points from frees, and fed Dean Riley with an awful lot of good ball. Tommy McDonough, really good wing back as well. He had a great game. Yeah, but they'll be happy. They were probably hurting from the Mully game the first day. They probably felt that was probably a game they probably could have, maybe should have won. But to bounce back and I suppose beat your local rivals as well is probably all the sweeter. But they're in a nice position now. I think the Portumna next, which will be it'll be an important game for them now as well. Yeah, and I think it's a game they're going to target. But they'll target the Portumna game, and they'll go at that now with a bit of confidence after picking up the win the last day.
Lee Mellows as well, Brian. They probably think maybe they're a team that should be up in Senior A, but I suppose to recover after losing in the opening day out and a 6-point victory over Mully at the weekend.
Yeah, that was a good result for them, but I didn't see it. I just listened to people that were at it and that, and they got a good start, and Mully just never pulled them back. Like Ardrahan did very well the first day out. They got beaten the last day, but that's very, very close. Anyone can beat anyone in them games, and then you get a run on a team, you get a good start. The Senior B is about it's just to make sure that if you get the good start and you keep plugging away and keep the scoreboard ticking, you'll normally come out the right side of them. Senior A, there's so much quality, and that's why they are where they are, all these teams, because of the quality ahead of them. But I think Lee Mellows will have aspirations and will be very hurt from coming down last year. But likewise, Clymer Daly, who managed to stay up then at their expense, they've done very, very well. So you can't take anything for granted. Senior B, it's not very easy to come up out of it.
Just if we do touch on intermediate now, obviously the group's beginning to take a bit of shape there, going into the final round in 2 weeks. Well, next weekend, with 4 teams in that group, 3 rounds. Who's standing out there for you, Kevin, in intermediate at the minute?
To me, it's probably Clymer so far. I'd say, yeah. I think they're 2 from 2, but they're probably the standout so far in the intermediate is probably Cropple and Clarenbridge. They're 2 from 2. Do you know what I mean? Cropple, especially 2 from 2, that's been brilliant after coming up from winning Junior A to have 2 from 2. I know Stephen Glennon is back involved with them boys there, and he's doing great work. But that to me is massive. But yeah, the standout performance is probably Clymer. Maybe probably closely followed maybe by Rahun, but I saw Clymer last year in the intermediate final, and I thought they were desperately unlucky, to be honest with you. But they look like they got back on the horse again. Kevin Haney's back playing well for them. He got a couple of goals the weekend as well. Yeah, they probably were my fancy as of now for the intermediate championship. Yeah.
Anyone else standing out there for you, Brian, in intermediate?
I think you have to ask questions of what's going on in Meath Aircourt. Like, that they've been the bridesmaids so many years in that competition. You know what I mean? They have the players, they have the group. They won their first game. They were very, very lucky, and then very, very unlucky not to get the win against Cardmore. Like, Cardmore were abysmal against Crowell in the first round. They put in a huge performance the last day. Had the game won in injury time. They were 3 points up and a point down in the 7 minute into Collins got a point to draw it. Again, you'd have to Clymer, who did a few sessions last year at one stage. They're very, very good. And I have to agree with Kevin. Clymer seemed to be carrying that consistency of form, and that's what they had. But you'd have to, from looking at the outside in and the talent available to Meath Aircourt, I think, their year has to come, and I would like to think that they will get it right further on in the championship, because there is talent there. They have a lot of good players, and I expect them to really, really, really test everyone ahead of them.
Just going into that final round, in the Group 1 next weekend, Kevin, it sets it up really nicely between Turlockmore and Ceylon. I suppose Ceylon maybe did surprise a few getting a draw with Ballindreen over the weekend. Yeah,
it was a real standout result, wasn't it? Like, and I have to say they do massive work down there as well. I think they've 3 teams affiliated this year. Did somebody tell me that? Which is phenomenal. For a club like them, like to be able to affiliate 3 senior teams is phenomenal going. But yeah, that's going to be big. That's going to be a big game. You'd have to fancy Ballindreen and saying that. You know what I mean? That with their pedigree and the character they have over there. After coming down from last year, you'd surely fancy Ballindreen to be able to do that, yeah.
Then Brian, as you mentioned there, Carnmore will be hoping maybe for results to go to their way, Munich Aircourt, and then it's between. With Crowell having more points than Carnmore. Group 3 wrapped up really already. Clymer and Abbeynock Moy. Rahoon then sitting top with 4 points, but then you'd expect Kinvara to beat Annadown, put them through as well.
You would, yeah, you would, yeah. You'd expect that, but just the intermediate throws it up every year. There's a surprise package. Like last year, I don't think anyone would have said Clymer would have been there. And Clymer were very, very lucky to get through the quarterfinal. Ceylan had drew with them and they beat them by a point in extra time. So Ceylan, there's so many teams there that they can, as on their day, they can beat anybody and they get a run the championship and to get a bit of momentum. And that's what I would be suggesting about Aircourt. Aircourt don't seem to have got that run or that momentum, and you'd think if they did, as a year goes on, that they would have more than anybody else. But I think it will boil down to, a Clymer and Aircourt. I think they'll be the two standouts. I think Crowell have behaved brilliantly to get through where they are. Ballinderry will be very disappointed. I know they're missing a lot of players. And from where they're coming down from senior, that it's a big hit for a club, that has aspirations of doing well. But I still think that the two teams that I mentioned, Clymer and Aircourt, they'll be the main ones. I think Carnmore will be very disappointed the way the year has worked out now. Results, I think they're really ruled out now, aren't they? So it's a big blow for them.
It'll be interesting to see how that intermediate championship gets on next weekend. We'll know the quarterfinal opponents then. That's all on our show for today. Thanks, many, for your time, lads.
Thanks, Paul.